Wisconsin is consistently ranked as one of the worst in the nation for racial disparities, whether we're talking about child poverty, educational attainment, employment, and incarceration. But research shows that systemic racism is also built into our very democracy. This racism, though, is nearly invisible, yet it reduces the participation of people of color in the electoral process on many different levels. Overt racism, supported by poll taxes or literacy tests, have been outlawed since 1965 when the Voting Rights Act was passed, but still there are systems in place that don't work for all people. We are happy to be joined by Lieutenant Governor Mandela Barnes. Born and raised in Milwaukee, he is the first African-American elected as Lieutenant Governor in the state of Wisconsin. How are you, Lieutenant Governor?
I am doing just fine. It's really good to see you. Really glad to be back. How are you?
I'm doing well, and of course, we're glad to have you join us today. You've said that systemic racism has been an issue that's been way too easy for people to ignore in the past, and it's something that can no longer be ignored. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. It is woven deeply into the fabric of this nation. I think back to the founding of this nation, we can go back as far as you want to. It could be either the arrival of enslaved Africans on the shores of Jamestown, Virginia in 1619. It could be the forcible removal of indigenous communities all across this country. And then when the United States came into its formal sense, how many people were excluded from that process, from choosing the decision makers? Women weren't allowed to vote. Black people definitely couldn't vote or make their voices heard. Non-landowning white people who didn't even have a say-so in this process. So there's a racism component. There's also the classism component that is deeply baked into what this nation has been. So with that being said, given the fact that we are more educated, given the fact that people are waking up and understanding the realities, especially as things play out across this country, racist acts, violent acts, bigotry, the vitriol, whatever the case may be, it's up to us to change the direction of this country. It's about standing up. It's about demanding more, recognizing the harms and injustices of the past, but also plotting and charting a course for the future. And that's a collaborative process, but it's not an easy process. We're talking, hundreds of years of reversal that needs to go into place into making sure that this country is an equitable place. We're a long way from it, but I do believe that we are starting to get on course, and there are some growing pains that come with that. However, at the same time, I remain optimistic.
Yeah, we all remain optimistic, but when we look at the state of Wisconsin specifically when it comes to voting, there are several issues that come to mind, and I'd like to bring up a couple of those, starting with gerrymandering. The definition is to manipulate the boundaries of an electoral constituency so as to favor one party or class, and it's considered unfair because it sets boundaries to decrease one group's voting strength. So if I'm correct, it was back in 2011 that the state legislative and congressional district maps were discreetly redrawn that basically reflects the things that we see happen consistently in the state when it comes to legislation. Would you agree with that?
Well, I'll add on top of that, the maps that were drawn in 2011 were deemed unconstitutional by the courts. This is still an ongoing legal battle. And the Supreme Court, which this case made it all the way to, the U.S. Supreme Court, they kicked the can. They kicked it back down to the lower courts. We're still in limbo with these maps that have not served the people of Wisconsin fairly, because when you look at some of the most popular topics, the most popular legislative agenda items that have overwhelming support from people across the state, legislature has decided to not act upon them, has chosen the path of ignoring what the people are calling for. So there's so many things that could be said about gerrymandering.
Yeah, and what you're speaking of in regards to the people, a Marquette University Law School poll showed that the concept of a nonpartisan redistricting commission has widespread support among Wisconsin voters, but still yet we are where we've been. And here we are with the U.S. Census that took place in 2020, which was quite a year, to say the least, right there in the middle of the pandemic. I think that the census count kind of got lost in the headlines with everything else that was taking place. So here we are back to having an opportunity to redraw the maps. And so what are your thoughts on possibly seeing what the people want take place this time around?
Well, absolutely. It's a fight that we can't give up. If we stop talking about it, people stop thinking about it. I had the pleasure to chair the majority of the proceedings of the Complete Count Committee last year. And as you said, it wasn't top of mind for a whole lot of people. We weren't able to, account for people in the ways that we had been in census years prior. There was less door knocking, but the fact is we adapted. We still had a pretty high response rate. I wanted us to be number one. We fell a little bit short, not too far down the line. But the fact is, community representation is what this comes down to. We want to make sure that we have as accurate a picture painted as possible. And so in terms of redistricting, now we have that data, and the governor has the People's Maps Commission, which is a nonpartisan group of people representative of all 8 congressional districts in the state. And we are committed to making sure that there is a transparent process. So in the event of the legislature attempting to draw rigged maps as they've done before, we want to be able to present an alternative so that the public can see it, members of the media, and also the legislature can see it to decide if, the route that has been chosen before is going to be the path that we go down, which is a path of non-responsiveness from our legislators, or we can try a new way that brings people into the process. This is what this is about. It's not a surprise that people overwhelmingly support nonpartisan redistricting. It's not great when Democrats do it. It's not great when Republicans do it. And it's time that the people had get a chance to have their concerns addressed as they should be.
Yes, and I bring up the census because there is a thing called prison-based gerrymandering. That's a policy that began with the first U.S. Census in 1790, which allows prisoners to be counted as residents in the district where they're incarcerated instead of where they resided pre-incarceration, and presumably where they will reside after their release. So I find that very interesting, of course, with Wisconsin having one of the highest rates of incarcerated Black men in America. Talk about how that really changes the balance of things as well.
Exactly. I mean, this is a redistricting, gerrymandering, I should say, is a form of voter suppression. It's actually voter manipulation is what we should probably call it, where we have these districts that are sort of skewed because there is a different racial composite to the legislative districts that doesn't truly represent the voting body, because we're not talking about people who get to make decisions. We're talking about incarcerated individuals who don't have a right to vote, which is unfortunate in itself and another conversation. But the fact is, prison-based gerrymandering is, I mean, it's just one of many things that is pretty abhorrent about the process as it is.
Wow. And it's really stuff that people don't really think about often unless, it's brought to the forefront and they have an opportunity to kind of think about it and say, wow, that is kind of unfair. So when we look at the state of Wisconsin, the voter ID law has been described as one of the harshest in the country, requiring voters to produce one of a few specified forms of photo ID in order to vote. So some say that's a tactic as well to suppress the vote or disenfranchise specific voters. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, and if I could just piggyback on the last question, you said it's something that folks don't think about, and that's unfortunately the case when it comes to incarcerated individuals. It is not top of mind. People aren't thinking about their lives as they should. People sort of dehumanize individuals who are involved in the criminal justice system, which again is another conversation. But these voter restriction bills that are even been introduced, they want to continue to make it harder for people to vote. The 2020 election brought a very diverse electorate, an electorate that was younger, an electorate that had a much more broad color spectrum, I'll say. And the fact is, the Republicans haven't been happy with that, and this is not a new thing when they feel like they're losing power because people that don't look like them, people that don't share their values are having their voices heard, and they want to rig the rules. And that's not the way that it should be. Democracy functions best when more people have access, when more people are able to participate. And that's the path that we're going to go down. We are going to make sure that impediments to voting will be vetoed, but at the same time, also proposing better access to voting in the form of automatic voter registration, which was in the governor's first budget in 2019. Also making sure that we have drop boxes so that people can cast their ballots earlier. We've seen the success of this process. We see how safe and secure it is as well. And so we have to work to modernize the way that people, are able to cast a ballot. And, if a person comes out of the criminal justice system, they shouldn't have to wait until they're off papers to be able to vote either.
Wow, that's a whole nother conversation, as you've said, but it just makes you wonder, when will we live in a society where the best elections are the ones where more people are able to come out and cast their votes? So is there anything else that you'd like to share with us in dealing with systemic racism and the ways that you're working in order to get rid of those systems?
Absolutely. It is about the structural change in this state. Wisconsin has been a leader on these issues before. It's important for us to reclaim that spot. And upon taking the oath of office as Lieutenant Governor, said that we're going to lead with equity and sustainability in mind. I'm proud of the work that we've done in terms of promoting equity within state government as an example for the entire state and all operations that take place here. We have a very diverse, the most diverse cabinet of secretaries here in Wisconsin and state government. We have made sure, or the governor has made sure, I should say, to diversify the bench with these judicial appointments, younger judges being appointed to the bench, first-time Black judges in many areas in the state as well. And it's an exciting thing, but we have such a long way to go. We won't be able to make up all of the lost time or make up for all the injustices in the span of 2.5 years. This is something that requires dedication and requires commitment for us to right these wrongs. And we are going to continue to push forward, making sure that opportunity exists in every part of the state. This could be healthcare, it could be childcare, education in general, job opportunities, making sure that what opportunities are available to people in the most wealthy zip codes are available to people in, unfortunately, the lowest resource zip codes.
Yeah, that's really what it's all about. And it goes without saying, I appreciate your time in talking to us about this very important subject, and I wish you continued success.
Well, thank you so much. It's always good to hang out with you. Can't wait till we do this in person.
Yes, indeed. Lieutenant Governor Mandela Barnes, he serves as the 45th Lieutenant Governor of Wisconsin. It's been almost 25 years since author Jonathan Coleman published his book, Long Way to Go, Black and White in America, which uses Milwaukee to explore race relations in America. We discuss the difficulties and progress made in Milwaukee over the course of 2 decades. My conversation with Jonathan Coleman is coming up right after this.